Welcome to another edition of Carnivore Bites. I'm your host, Jeff Sherman, along with Dr. Eric Lopkin. A lot on the agenda, a lot going on this week, everything from the hurricane to a lot of political situations going on. Let's start with something kind of benign. Trevor Noah took over Comedy Central's late night, which was completely on a roll, almost became the millennials' go-to news source. Again, has done nothing. He's gone. I don't think a lot of people will even notice. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know how many people will even care that he's out.
Zero. How does that sound?
I think it's part of a bigger system that's going on. Let's face it, Trevor Noah was pretty much a poster boy for wokeness.
Yes.
And we are now seeing the backlash. So you've got him out at the Daily Show. You've been seeing the changes at CNN and Politico getting rid of their woke agenda. There was a movie that opened up called Bros, which was a gay romantic comedy that made a whopping $4 million at the box office. And of course, the star is lashing out saying, oh, it's because everybody is racist and everybody is homophobic. It's like, no, it's because you started attacking everybody and nobody wanted to support your movie. Not to mention the fact that from every review, it's been garbage.
Can we put in perspective the story of Lopkin and Sherman and their creation of Carnivore Radio? I think might get 2 million. I mean, 4 million. 4 million. That's like what?
I loved the comment that Greg Gutfeld made because the star whose name I forget, and I think he was also the producer, has been yelling that, oh, we need more diversity. We need more diversity. And Greg Gutfeld pointed out, no. You achieved diversity because it was an incredibly diverse audience that decided they didn't want to see this piece of shit.
There you go. And talking about Gutfeld and late night, he's actually beating Colbert and the also-rans. And it's really interesting. Got YouTube TV. And they have a channel. One of the channels on Roku is Johnny Carson, and it's not. I mean, has late night. I mean, who would watch Colbert with Nancy Pelosi? I would rather watch, like I said, reruns of like Mr. Ed. It is unwatchable. He's not even. And you watch the show because I did see the clip. Humor's gone. There's no. That's not even part of the agenda.
There is
a
no
political
humor
wokeness festival.
Yeah, there is no humor on The Late Show. If you listen closely, you will notice that the audience never laughs. They applaud whenever they flash the applause sign, but they never laugh anymore. And I think Trevor Noah is the tipping point where you're going to start seeing the programming directors, the CEO of all these networks going, you know what? This has gone far enough. Our ratings are in the toilet because of this woke bullcrap. We need people with actual talent on the air.
Lopkin, I agree with you 1,000%. And let me put it in perspective. Even when I was before I was even in college, in high school, and most Americans went to bed, not literally, but figuratively, with Johnny Carson. And even I'll give Jay Leno. It was fun. You poke fun at both sides politically and what's going on in the news. I don't want some shithead like Colbert. I had enough stress in my day. I don't want that shithead. There's nothing funny about it. It's not to be, and if it was funny on the left, yeah, that might be fine. No problem. The Daily Show with Stewart was pretty funny. This is not funny. And your point about clapping, yeah, it's that part of what they're doing when they're writing the show. It's all about a political agenda. And who wants to see an 85-year-old senile hedge fund trader like Nancy Pelosi?
It is amazing. And, you brought up Jon Stewart, who preceded Trevor Noah on The Daily Show. And I think it's really important. I actually have on my computer clips from Jon Stewart's Daily Show where Jon Stewart is a well-known liberal. He's been a Democratic supporter, and yet he would go off on Barack Obama. He took on whoever was in office, and most importantly, he made it funny. And they don't have the ability to do this anymore.
Well, my vote, my award to be the shittiest late night host, and even going back to Chevy Chase, it lasted, I believe, about the time it takes to go shopping at Walmart. Better than that. He gets the award for the absolute worst. Do you agree? Nothing to do politically. It's just awful.
You're talking about Colbert?
Yes.
Yeah. Colbert has no talent. He was a one-trick pony with the Colbert Report, and he was actually on the verge of being fired from CBS when Trump took office. Trump literally saved his job.
Yeah, amazing. And then there's also the whole thing, talking about something that kind of I grew up with, you to some degree grew up with, Saturday Night Live, in college, smoking a couple joints, laughing. That's pretty, the initial show rating sucked, critically just panned. Is that time to go away as well?
Well, there have been statements by a couple of cast members who have said the plan is at this point. Saturday Night Live is approaching its 50th anniversary.
Mm-hmm.
And they are saying that NBC wants to keep it on the air until it hits the 50th anniversary. And rumor is that may be the last year of the show.
Oh, darn. Darn. What am I going to do?
It looks like NBC realizes that the show has more than run its course.
Oh,
it has
like 10 years ago. 20 years ago.
It has become a bad joke, but they also know there's a fortune to be made for the 50th anniversary.
Nailed it. You nailed like Judge's home run. That is absolutely, it's like, this thing stinks like roadkill, but you need to just keep it for the 50th. Just make it happen to the 50th, and let's just get this thing over with.
Exactly. And I believe that's what they're planning on doing.
I'm sure they are. Now, on a much more serious note, all these liberals out there, I'm sure not many of them listen to Carnivore Bites, but, being the embracing, and you remember Berkeley in the 60s, about everyone has a voice. Well, except if you're Jewish. You are now pretty much banned from talking about anything pro-Israel, pro-Zionism, and in fact, one commentator said at UC Berkeley, they pretty much have Jew-free zones. Is that chilling?
It is absolutely terrifying. And unfortunately, this is not simply happening at Berkeley. Brooklyn College in Brooklyn, New York, a very Jewish area, scheduled mandatory diversity training. People had to go, essentially, you have to admit that, yes, you're all closet racists, and now we have to deal with this.
Mm-hmm.
They scheduled this mandatory training for Yom Kippur, the holiest day on the Jewish calendar. And Brooklyn College has a large Jewish population. And you could be fired for not attending this on the holiest day of the year. So imagine now if somebody had said, well, you have to go through this woke training and you have to do it on Easter Sunday.
Well, who's in charge there? I mean, I have to be honest with you. When are the Jews in America going to wake up? I mean, our esteemed Senator Blumenthal hasn't said jack shit about anything about this, the creeping anti-Semitism, anti-Israeli fervor that's sweeping the Democratic Party, and these moron Jews still voting. Oh, my father, my grandfather voted Democratic. Hello, well, time has passed. Maybe you should wake up and smell the coffee. You moron. You absolute moron.
It is time for the Jewish community to stand up. Because, yes, the Democrats for decades were traditional champions of the Jewish people. This is no longer the case. Yes, and Israel. They cannot be depended on to protect the Jewish people.
And the big sea change of that was Ronald Reagan era.
Yeah, and what really kills me is that the Democrats are the ones calling the Republicans Nazis. Where if you look at the actions, whose actions are actually mirroring the Nazi Party? Now, I'm not.
And if we had a real press,
Nazis,
if we had a real press instead of Nora O'Donnell, that her biggest challenge in life that the head football player didn't ask her to the prom, if they actually reported some of this shit, maybe people could actually wake up. I doubt that's going to happen. I'm not hanging my hat on that. But let's get to a more comical and tragic, let's be honest, it's a little tragic. Kamala and Joe. That's Laurel and Hardy. Isn't that? It's kind of Laurel and Hardy. I don't know. Was funny.
I think that's a bit insulting to Laurel and Hardy.
Something I think you might be right. So Kamala goes to North Korea, or I'm sorry, South Korea.
To South Korea.
Yeah, South Korea, and affirms our strong alliance with North Korea.
With North Korea,
and to show a respect, the ultimate respect they have for this genius. This well-accomplished genius, North Korea launches their most sophisticated and longest range missile that actually went over parts of Japan. Yeah, brilliant.
Every time I think Kamala can't be any stupider, she proves me wrong. And it wasn't just saying in a speech to the South Korean people about America's great alliance with the Republic of North Korea. She stood at the demilitarized zone with binoculars saying, I don't see it. I can't see the demilitarized zone. And her aide has to say, it's 50 feet in front of you.
Well, isn't it
she
really
had
the
no
case?
idea where she was.
Is it not the case, Dr. Lotkin, her claim to fame, yes, she's attractive, and she checked all the boxes.
That's
and
it.
Isn't that pathetic where we are in America?
And this is what happens when you check the boxes for, racial diversity and
whatever,
homosexual diversity and whatever other diversity. Let's face it, there are African American women out there who are brilliant, who could run circles around Kamala Harris. Why wasn't any of them chosen to be vice president? Instead, we have this crackpot who's not capable of stringing 3 words together.
What amazes me is how did she ever become a lawyer, a DA? That's for a whole nother discussion. Absolutely unfrigging believable. And she's a one-trick pony. Everything revolves, and that's why one of the reasons, not the only reason, checking the boxes were the biggest reasons. But another reason, she came at the right place at the right time. All she knows is race. We have people of all ethnic groups, socioeconomic status that are devastated. Imagine, put yourself in this situation. You're a blue-collar white family, and your house is destroyed. You've lost everything, right? And instead of being reassured, Kamala says that I'm sorry, Mr. Mrs. White family, you're now fourth on the hierarchy because we have to take care of the underprivileged. I mean, the exact wrong. You need someone to reassure. I find that unbelievable.
I will go you one better, because this is an actual situation that just happened. As Florida was getting hit with this hurricane, there is a senior community in Delray Beach, Florida called Kings Point. A tornado hit a building in this senior community. The building has now been condemned. So these seniors, who are mostly white and many are Jewish, have lost their home due to this community. These are folks living on a fixed income. And Kamala wants them to take a back seat to communities of color that may be bringing in more money than they are.
Well, speaking about being Jewish, hold up. Speaking of being Jewish, did you hear that Lunch Pail Joe, Amtrak Joe, has been to Shul more times than most Jews? Yes, that was in the speech. Yes.
He did that at the same time he was applying for the non-existent job in Delaware, and when he visited the southern border.
There you go. Yes, and when he called on a dead person. The other time it was maybe even better when he called on a paraplegic like 10 years ago. Stand up, Bill. Stand up. And
yes. Tell the paraplegic to stand up. In this recent speech, he was looking for a dead person. He knew that this woman had passed away, and yet he's calling out her name at the speech. He has no idea where he is or what he's saying.
And it's exponential. I agree with you. You look at me, it was like 2 weeks ago, a week ago, when he had some economic forum meeting, and he literally, if it was like my grandmother or my I would be really concerned, like floating around, looking like he's completely disoriented. It is so scary, and it is so pathetic that Jill Biden, which I'm not one of her biggest fans, Dr. Jill, I should say, allowed this to happen along with the mainstream media. Very dangerous and pathetic.
I honestly believe that Jill Biden and the power brokers of the Democratic Party should be prosecuted for elder abuse
and fraud.
Because it is very obvious that Joe is not in command of his faculties.
Not at all.
He keeps saying, "Oh, I'm not allowed to do that. Oh, they told me not to do that." He's clearly not in control. So who is? And why was this allowed to happen?
The answer's beyond my pay grade. I think it was allowed to happen because here's what happened. Before the pandemic, Trump was a shoo-in. This happened before. And so you had a very weak bunch of candidates. Mayor, talk about checking the boxes. Mayor Petey checked the box because he was gay. The rest of the crew was the complete morons. And all of a sudden, pandemic hits. Trump kind of comes unglued, and Bernie, if it wasn't for the South Carolina primary and what happened there, would have been the nominee. So the only one to go to is Amtrak Joe.
But no,
Unfortunately,
Bernie
Amtrak
would
Joe. Go ahead.
Bernie would never have been the nominee. The Democratic Party would not allow it. They
And that's
rigged
what
the
they didn't allow. Yes.
2016. Yes, they did that in the 2016. They rigged the primary so he couldn't beat Hillary Clinton. They would do that again. Bernie Sanders will never be the Democratic nominee. But we've been talking about the hurricane. And I will be perfectly honest with you. I'm going to go out on a limit on this, but based on the performance during the hurricane, I will not be surprised if the next president of the United States is the governor of Florida. I know the Democrats would be apoplectic to think about that, but he has been brilliant.
You know something? I agree 100,000%. But fat ass has to get out of the way. And speaking of getting out of the way, Republicans had all the headwinds going for them, but Trump had to put his foot in his friggin' mouth 4 years ago in the senatorial election in Georgia because he had a hissy fit, and now who did he endorse? Herschel Walker, great running back, great kickoff returner, not a Mensa candidate.
Okay, but seriously though, he has no political experience. He has no track record for us to judge. In the same way, people said Ronald Reagan is running for office. He's an actor. Fred Grandy is running for office. He's an actor. We've had astronauts. We don't know that he is going to be a bad choice.
Well, I think that he had a lot of issues to begin with that people knew about. Severe, not minor, severe mental health issues like going to a mental hospital, which is fine. Things happen to people, but I'm sorry, that's not exactly senatorial kind of stock. And it was an easy seat, low hanging fruit. Warlock, whatever the heck his name is, socialist, didn't pay child support, and who do we get? Numbnuts. And that seat it's a 10-point or 6-point situation. That's before the abortion issue. And he also staked out a very, very draconian abortion stance. Very, very painful that we would lose a seat to, Warlock. That was a disaster.
That's something else that's driving me up the wall, because the Democrats have been running commercials about this, and a couple of Republicans, Herschel Walker, Lindsey Graham, have made comments about this. The fact of the matter is, the senators, the congresspeople, their opinions on abortion are irrelevant because the Supreme Court gave the power to the states, not the Congress. Congress could have passed abortion laws prior, but nothing that either side, Democrat or Republican, tries to do on abortion through Congress will survive a court case because the Supreme Court has said the states have the right.
And I agree with you on the fact.
It is driving me nuts it is driving me nuts that people are falling for the fear mongering. They're going to ban it nationally.
Lindsey Graham should know better. You just put fuel on the fire, shut up, and just be done. And Lindsey Graham is a real political hack. I've seen him a billion times. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do this. It's like, and what happens?
Right. No, you're not. And where it does matter, in the state houses, in the governor's races, the misinformation is huge. Here in the state of Connecticut, we have a gubernatorial race going on where Bob Stefanowski, the Republican candidate, has been painted as an extremist, a MAGA extremist. We can't allow. Bob Stefanowski is pro choice. And
Well, I
people
would
are
have to
stupid.
say, as I said it before, Dr. Lopkin, I would not let most Democrats, most Democratic politicians change my oil, but they are miles above the Republicans at spin doctoring. I believe they
Yes.
read the book, Rules for Radicals, and they do it
Yeah.
extremely well. That's the end of that. Uh, but speaking of the midterms, I don't know if it's going to come into play. Obviously, probably not. But many economists, plus 90% of CEOs, believe that we got a huge reset. Like, get your bell bottoms, get the disco ball. This is 1975 all over again. Could be the biggest recession. Some say ever. How does that sound? And longest
Yes.
running.
For those of you who missed the 70s or weren't alive in the 70s, this is pretty much what it was. You had gas prices going through the roof. And of course,
The roof.
OPEC today just announced they're cutting production, which is going to make it go higher. All of these economists say, "Oh, we see a recession coming in 2023." That's like standing in front of a traffic accident and saying, "I see something bad happening." We're not
Or if
going
you're
into a
Biden
recession.
saying,
We're here.
or if you're Biden, you could say, I see dead people in the audience.
Uh,
Same
yes,
thing, isn't it?
we are in a
In a
recession. As
recession.
much as Biden wants to deny it, we have already had 2 quarters of a contracting economy. That is the definition of a recession. Biden keeps going, "Oh, but we've got a huge job market. The jobs are great." No, they're not. The
No, job
number of
openings
available
plummeted.
jobs, yes, job openings dropped severely to the lowest point in over a year. The jobs
And
are going away.
real wages are down 9%. That's real money. That's no joke. As
Right.
Biden likes
So
to say, this is no joke.
all of this pie in the sky planning. Oh, our policies are doing great things. No, no, no. And on top of all of that, as interest rates are rising, the U.S. national debt hit $31 trillion for the first time ever. Biden keeps saying, "Oh, we've cut the deficit. We've cut the deficit."
And
That's great, but the debt is skyrocketing.
yes, and by the way, every time you say Biden said this or no, Biden has said nothing. It's
No, 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 no,
Susan
no, no.
Rice or Obama.
Biden said it. And
No,
maybe
I know he said it,
somebody else
but he
wrote
didn't.
it for him,
Yeah,
but
that's what I'm saying. I
he's
don't
the
doubt
one
that he.
saying it.
Yeah, he said it. Susan Rice, the real president, or Obama in the shadows, told him to say it. Am I wrong?
Well, I again, we've had this conversation before. Susan Rice is obviously behind the power. Obama has nothing to do with this because Obama and Biden do not get along. If Obama told Biden to do anything, even as addle-brained as he wouldn't do it.
Well, I got to go. We have to go back to Trump, and I'm really kind of sick of him. And Dr. Lopkin, I hope and I pray you are correct. We need DeSantis. I am sick of lard ass. I'm sick of his shit. But he's suing CNN. The guy just loves conflict, and I don't know where this is going. What do you think?
Well, he loves conflict, but he
Loves
actually may have a point on this one.
I know he does, but
Because,
nothing's going to happen.
well, again, we're going to have to see. Certain laws had hit the courts, and the Supreme Court made a decision making it easier for public personalities to sue for defamation of character in the media. And I think this is going to be the trial balloon to see what happens. But let's face it, CNN not just defamed him, they outright lied. They were reporting the, Russia collusion, Russia, 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 lied about what he was doing, lied about the result. They're still telling lies about the Trump tax cut. It amazes 90% of Americans got a tax cut during, from that change, and yet the Democrats are still going, oh, it was a tax cut for billionaires. No, it wasn't. And I think this is going to be an interesting case to watch, because even if he doesn't prevail all the way, it could make it hard enough for media that they're actually going to have to go back to doing their homework and getting 3 independent sources before they report anything.
And I think it's also, Dr. Lopkin, going to put fuel on the CNN purging fire.
I hope so.
I believe it will.
Everything about CNN really does need to be purged. It was amazing the other day watching the demoralized Don Lemon try to get a NOAA scientist to say that these hurricanes that were going on right now are all because of climate change. And the scientist kept saying, well, if you want to talk about climate change, I can come back and talk about that. But that has nothing to do with these hurricanes. And he could not come back to that. He was absolutely flabbergasted, because all he wanted to do was get across his theory that all of these hurricanes were because of climate change. And the scientists refused to say it.
He's a neutral reporter, isn't he?
No, Don Lemon has never been a reporter.
Don
Lemon is a comment. At his best, he was a commentator. But
his best moment, probably his best moment, his shining moment, was having too many drinks New Year's Eve with Anderson Cooper. That's the best reporting he's ever done. Speaking of reporting, Elon Musk looks like he's proceeding with the Twitter. That is good news.
He is. Twitter has confirmed that they got confirmation from him. He is going to be buying Twitter, and the liberals are going crazy.
I love it. Why do the liberals, Dr. Lopkin, when you talk at 26, what is it about? Has it been that they've been in such a safe zone for 20 years that anything that rattles their world, rocks their world, they just don't know how to handle it? We actually have a generation of liberals that, the old school in America was shit happens and and it makes you stronger. These people are if their cable went down, they might have to go to a hospital.
Yeah, it's amazing how we've created a generation of victims. But I find the liberals' reaction to the Twitter purchase hysterical. The New York Times came out and stated that if Musk actually buys Twitter, then he's going to have his finger on the scale for the 2024 election. These are the people that suppressed the Hunter Biden laptop story for 2020, literally giving Biden the election, and they're afraid that Elon Musk is going to put his thumb on the scale in favor of Republicans for the 2024 election.
Brutal. Now we got 2 other issues. I had a serious one and then something that's enjoyable. I played baseball in high school. I kind of got out of it because it's like, my ADD. Now I'm back in it. But before we get into what just happened with Aaron Judge, but let's talk about gas prices, Dr. Lopkin, and by the way, our esteemed president pretty much pumped the national strategic supply, basically pumped it dry. Did you know that? Like it's basically
He
done
did,
that.
and
I'm
yet
talking like now, not
in
like
November,
go ahead.
in November, he's actually going to release more barrels from
That's
what
what I'm
little
saying.
we
Yes,
have left.
it's pretty much
And
done.
what's absolutely amazing is that Biden himself, as well as a number of other Democrats, during the Trump administration, were ridiculing Donald Trump for reinforcing the strategic reserves and putting more oil in them.
Well, Schumer axed it. He was like, we could have had oil at half the price now, but Chucky Schumer said no. Explain that.
Yep.
Explain that to me.
Because the well being of the American people has nothing to do with the Democrats in office. It's all about their power and their money.
100%. Well, on a lighter note, Aaron Judge hit 61 home runs.
62.
60. I'm sorry, my fault. Broke.
62. He
broke the 61 barrier, highest total in American League history. Roger Maris did it before roids went crazy in the 1990s, and very, very. And someone caught the ball. Initial assessments are it's worth about $2 million right now.
Yep.
You never know what's going to happen. A really nice feel-good story, no roids, and it brings in maybe a not-so-feel-good story. Does the MLB have the ho-hos to say, McGuire and all that crap, it doesn't exist. It was a joke. It was no joke ruined baseball.
I
don't. I know that. It's a
I don't think they're
question.
going to. And, it's funny because it goes all the way back to Roger Maris. Because, of course, as any baseball aficionado knows, Roger Maris's 61 home run record is always followed by an asterisk.
Yes, because of the season.
Because baseball couldn't stand up to the family of Babe Ruth, who said, well, it's not fair that he had more games to do it in. Well, if they couldn't stand up to Babe Ruth's family, they're sure as hell not going to stand up to McGuire, Sosa, and Barry Bonds, who realistically, their records should be stricken from the books. Never mind.
100%. And don't you think that would help Major League Baseball? I do, because it's a sport of traditional values, statistics. It runs on statistics, comparing one era to another. But you had people basically in the mid '90s. You could have just had steroid injections on the dugout. You're basically in the warm-up area.
Many of them did.
On deck circle, have a friggin'.
It is absolutely ridiculous that those records still stand. They should be stricken from the books. Or if you don't have the balls to do that, Major League Baseball, at least put 2 asterisks next to each one of them, so that in the record books it says that you've got 1 asterisk for Maris, put 2 asterisks for these guys, so that everybody knows they were juiced when they did it.
And how about 2 asterisks and a syringe? But anyway, last thing, gas prices. I know we talked about it. How impactful is it going to be in the midterms? Because I think it's going to talk about juiced. It's going to be juiced.
Yep. It's going to be tremendous because, first of all, everybody needs to fill up their car.
Yes.
So they're going to see this over and over again. Every time they go to fill up, they're going to be hit with this. Second of all, the cost of fuel also affects trucking and shipping, which means it's going to raise the prices of everything else. So you're going to see inflation Remember, Biden was making the case that month over month inflation had slowed. It's going to start speeding
No,
up
it
again.
only increased. No, it only increased by an inch. I've
Right?
never
Yes.
heard that. I've
Only
never understood that. An inch. Yes.
yeah.
Okay.
And in a related note, it came out today. They released an electric version of the Hummer.
I love this.
It will take you if you have a rapid charger, it will take you 24 hours to charge this truck. If you don't have a rapid charger, it
It
will
could take
take
days.
you 4 days.
Can I ask you a
Ford,
question?
but well, hang on.
Because
Ford
okay, sorry.
Ford just announced that their electric pickup trucks immediately lose 40% of their capacity if you put anything in the flatbed.
That's all great for our working Americans. But how about Mayor Petey, Cutie Petey? He says it's totally realistic to get rid of all fossil fuel vehicles by in the next 10 years, 10 to 12 years. Has Mayor
Yes, but
Pete basically hit the shitter?
Mayor Pete also believes that men can become pregnant.
Yeah,
So
but is
his
his career done? He checked the
yes,
boxes.
he checked the boxes, they put him in, and like Kamala, he has failed miserably.
Miserable.
And what really tickles me is he thinks he's running for president again.
One thing I love, like just like Beto O'Rourke and others. You
Gavin
know something?
Newsom.
Yeah, Newsom. These people have accomplished nothing. We used to have people like Eisenhower, FDR, an accomplished Beto. Like, I really am intrigued by this. I suffer the other way. Like, oh yeah, I can't do that. I can't do that. What makes you think? He had no qualifications. Mayor Petey, he ran like a city like Bridgeport, and you think you can be president of the United? Kamala, you did nothing but have an affair with Willie Brown. I mean, the audacity. It's mind-boggling.
They have it is, and when you look at the situations they're leaving behind, I mean, Gavin Newsom. I mean, realistic. He is set to run for president,
Oh
and
no, he
seriously,
definitely is.
all
He is
yes, and
absolutely
all
running.
any candidate running against him, Democrat or Republican, all they have to do is go, look at what he did to California. Do you want him to do this to the country?
But I think the dumbing down of America is that Americans are so stupid at this point that he's actually right out of central casting a good looking guy, great presence, great shape, hot wife, and has an IQ of like 70. But does that really matter anymore, Dr. Lofton?
Well, I mean, in all fairness, it never really mattered. Going all the way back, people voted for their media stars. And before television and movies, media stars were soldiers. People wrote books about presidential candidates filled with inaccuracies that people ate up and went, that's my guy. So, yeah, this is not new. There was a two-part show on HBO years ago called Assume the Position that Robert Wool did, where he talked about history. And one of the things was that bad candidates are as American as apple pie. They've
Well, there's a
always
book written
been
in the
here.
Oh yeah, there's a book written in the 1960s, Why Great Men Don't Become President. And you got to figure, I think Eisenhower, I think some others possibly were great men, accomplished, but would you ever really want to go through that crap? Oh, you left the high school prom without picking up your date. It's like, come on, really? I don't need that crap.
I know we've said this over and over again. The best and the brightest don't go into government.
And I'll say this because I know he contributes to the other show on this network. And Chris Calandra said that he meets more accomplished people in 1 hour than he would in a year in government.
And he's absolutely right.
1,000%. Well, Dr. Lotkin, great show. And we're available everywhere, and people can comment and suggest what we want to talk about. And
yeah, if you'd like to comment on anything we've discussed, or if there's an issue you want us to look into, you can go to xvadio.com/connect. Let us know what you're thinking. And of course, you can catch every episode of Carnivore Bites at xvadio.com/podcasts, the Carnivore Radio website, Apple Podcasts app, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Amazon Music, Audible, and any platform that respects freedom of speech.
Thank you, Dr. Lotkin. Great show.
We'll see you next time.